Maya said, don't give up. She wants to she messaged me.
We were just trying to, she just wanted to use up all the film from yesterday.
Okay, in behalf of the Kelly Board of Directors, we welcome you here and thank you very much for coming. This is a very special occasion for our family, and I'll introduce them. And there are some members of the family in the audience too, but anyway, the people that are participating are up here in the front. And right here to my left is Terry Anderson and his wife Helen, and Darlene Cordero, my cousin Jeanette Nykirk, my brother Bud Stenback, and behind him is my cousin Judy and her husband, the Olivers, and our daughter Diane is here, and her daughter Marina is there, and they're from San Diego, and my niece from Corvallis, Oregon, and her daughter Gaia, and Gaia from Hawaii.
No slithering into this place, is there?
Anyway, the occasion yesterday was very wonderful. We were celebrating 100 years since my grandparents bought the property in Comptche. And so, as you can see, they came from far and near to be there. And some had to go back today, so they were not able to be here today. But those that are here, we're going to talk about memories of Comptche. And some have been here before when we did part one, but we have some new ones. So you'll hear new stories this time. So, Terry, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm the newcomer. Yeah. Yeah, I actually am a new person to this family. I've only been coming up here for about 40 years. The most amazing thing about this, I do a lot of genealogical research, and in doing that, I've come in contact with a portion of our family, the Stenbacks back in Minnesota. And I had the opportunity to describe what Comptche was like and what the people were like in Comptche, so it was kind of fun. And it was actually really, really easy. You know, it was used words like kind, generous, thoughtful, helpful, friendly. I feel like a Boy Scout. But it's an extraordinary thing being part of this family, and the memories are just like it was last night. We celebrate them with huge parties and lots of fun and lots of gets together, and it's really, really quite wonderful. In particular, I remember one time where Helen and I were camping at Hendy Woods, which is really not very far from Comptche, and we just didn't have something to do that hour of the day, so we're just going to go into Comptche and go visit May, which is her mother. And it was just impromptu. She didn't know we were coming, but she was so delighted and so excited to have us there. It was like, oh my God, this is a whole family. And what we were married then, I think so. Married a couple of years or something like that. New to me. I had never experienced anything like that before. And the warmth and the friendships and all that sort of stuff has been just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Right on.
That said it all.
She was with me when we did all.
Community property store. The best thing about having family reunions is that every time we all get together, there's always somebody that says, I didn't know that. And this weekend I heard a lot of, I didn't know that. Someone was like, oh crap, I didn't know that. So it was great. And the best thing about yesterday too is that we had friends come and celebrate with us. And our family is big and getting bigger, but our friends are part of our family too. So it just made it wonderful. Cause you're up.
That's it?
Oh, we'll go around again.
We need a story.
story.
Come on.
Story.
Give us a story.
I'll give you
Come on,
some
Auntie, come on,
Yeah,
Auntie,
Jeanette
Auntie.
has
I got
stories.
tales. They don't like to tell the tales. I tell the tales. You don't know what it's like being brought up by a Finnish mother and grandmother. Life is never the same. If you didn't have fears beforehand, you would by the time you got through being a teenager. Get you. For instance, my mother never had to look for me when it got dark because I was told bats love blonde hair. And if you're out at night and the bats get in your hair, we're gonna have to shave your head off. That did it. You know, first bat of the night. I was in somewhere, they didn't have to look for me. Then there was, to keep me off the county road, the end of the private road, there was a cattle guard. So I was told, don't try to walk over the cattle guard, because if you do, your foot's gonna get caught in there and grandma's bull is gonna trample you to death. Now this is like age 4 or 5 and you're thinking, okay. But you know, I was in my late 20s before I figured out grandma never had a bull. She had cows, she didn't have a bull. She only had 2 meat cows. And at that time too, when Buddy and his siblings were going to the old Comptche school, there was a stile. Do all of you know? Most of you know what a stile is. Up over the stile into the schoolyard, and you'd go through the schoolyard, onto the county road, across the street, and you could get a nice ice cream from the Gamera store. Except, I was told, Jerry Philbrick was waiting around the corner in his hot rod, and if I stepped foot on that county road and tried to cross it, I was going to be nothing but broken. So I just saw Jerry last week at the Tunsie party, and I said, you realize you ruined my childhood. He said, you're never going to let me forget that one. I said, nope, I am not. And there, oh yeah, there's all kinds of.
Some of the stories were passed down for generations. Dee being the oldest of the first cousins, my sister being the youngest of the first cousins, is like 19 years, 21 years between the two of them. But what was passed down for generations for the children is that you never went near a well because a Naki was going to get you. And this Naki, as we all envisioned, was some great big monster with all these long arms, that if you were 10 feet and close to that well, that arm would come and yank you, drag you. You know, none of us kids, including Maya and Alan and Janine and Diane, none of us to this day will go near a well. All the blackberries are the biggest ones right there, because I still won't go near that well. I know the Naki's going to get me.
That's all right, I can't walk over cattle guards. Go ahead, Bud, you're on.
One kind of funny story that happened to me, I was maybe 8 or 10 years old. My brother was 5 years younger than I was. There it is back when you had to make your own entertainment and stuff like that. So we used to trap a lot. We had these coon traps and traps for whatever we could catch. And well, anyway, this one particular time I decided I was going to trap a deer. And so me and my brother went down and found this real good deer trail there. And I had this double spring trap, you know, it was kind of hard. I was a little kid then, it was a pretty strong trap. And I finally got it set and I nailed it real good to this log that was alongside of there. And then I tied an apple to the trigger. And my brother asked me, well, how was that going to catch a deer? I said, I'll show you. I went out there on a trail and I walked up the trail like a deer would, and I put my fingers on the trigger, or the jaws, thinking I would hold the jaws down. And I bit that apple. And my fingers and lips and my
I didn't know that. I was adopted.
My brother, he took off, and it took me quite a while to get out of that thing. But boy, I looked like a duck bird. Okay, we didn't get
Who can follow that, but.
Mark.
Yesterday at the reunion of people we hadn't seen in years, but a lot of people said, well, do you remember Grace and Eddie Edwards? Or do you remember Charlie Hanula? Now, these were characters in Comptche, and of course they lived right on the property or nearby. They were all terrible, horrible alcoholics. They fit right in. They were just Charlie Hanula, I remember as a kid I'd see him coming up the road, you know, from our grandma's house, and he'd have a sack of ice cream bars or whatever from the store in his gunny sack, and he would bring us like 50-50 or fudgesicles or something like that. That was huge when we were kids. Charlie and I were small. Grace and Eddie, I mean, they were so drunk they couldn't get out of their cars. Give us, you know, 5-year-old Tootsie Rolls or open the gate so they could make it. But even the neighbor kids, they remember, because if they were at our house, we were all lined up to open the gate for them. You know, so those are one of the many memories.
Well, actually, I'm the youngest pup with the family. I've been here shorter than Terry has, so I don't have the experiences that he has. I've only
You're
been
here
around.
by choice, though, and that's even worse.
Well, that's true. When I asked Judy to marry me, her mother, Tiny, did say that you're not marrying just her, you're marrying the family, which is true. But, so I don't really have the memories that, or the times that a lot of people did, like Terry did prior to me. Although I do remember the family get-togethers and just brought everybody together and just the love of everybody. Family, friends, what have you. It's just everybody was welcome. Always enough food and drink for everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Sure you don't want to say more?
You're the family longer than I am.
I actually, when I told my mother, she was describing that we would have to get up on this panel, I said, well, I think I'm going to elect to sit in the back and not really participate, and she didn't say anything, but then when I got here, she said, you don't have a choice, you're sitting in the front. But having grown up in Mendocino, I have great memories of going out to Comptche, and back then, even though it was only half an hour by car, for whatever reason, it seemed like it took hours to get out there, but it was like having this country experience that I can remember collecting chicken eggs and chasing cows, and I can remember my cousin Alan, we used to find tarantula holes and flood them out, stick a pin in them and pull the webs out of them. But just these incredibly unique experiences that I think you would only find, kind of in the country. And I can remember the ghost in my grandmother's house. Do you remember the ghost? And so we used to hunt for the ghost in the middle of the night. And the funniest memory that I have, actually, back then, when I was really young, they had a party line. So there was only like one phone line, and there were like 7 or 8 people attached to one phone line. And the way that you would know if if your phone was ringing is everybody had a certain ring. Like one person had one, like it would be one ring, and somebody else would have like a series of 3 rings. But the funny thing is that it was kind of part of this whole little circle of women. And it was kind of like the honor system that you wouldn't pick up the phone if it was somebody else's ring. But I know for sure that there was like a lot of eavesdropping going on. And I remember as a kid just being like fascinated, like with my grandmother would kind of listen in, and then she'd be convinced that other people were listening in to her. And anyway.
You don't know, half the county was in on that line.
So I'm Janine Sawwasser, and I was the city girl that would come up from Millbrae, south of San Francisco, to Comptche. I can't remember, was it once a month or twice a month, Mom?
Lots.
A lot, right? And those are just my greatest childhood memories. It's hard for me to get really emotional, but just, I can remember Uncle Bud putting us on the cows, and we'd be riding the little baby cows, bossy, feeding them apples, and I don't think we were chasing cows, we were being chased. And Charlie's bull, and his father, Matt, the harmonica, who just had this, he would just play and play and play, and I was just so fascinated. It's just, it's like there was really little television. I mean, all your fun was outdoors, looking for lizards and going down to the river and just being with family. And being at the reunion yesterday, seeing these little ones and just hoping that they have those same experiences that we did.
Would you like a session?
I'm the sensitive Finn. You're on.
Well, I think yesterday, I don't know how many times we said we couldn't believe that we actually were all still alive after everything we did. And yeah, we were talking about that. That propane tank came real close. Out. I did teach you to drive.
She's the younger one, teaching the older cousin to drive.
And I don't think Dad ever knew about that till now, right? That's your cue, Dad. Let's go up to the mill flat. Dad will never know. Well, I guess I'm one of just the two that actually was raised out in Comptche, and just thinking about entertainment about 3 years ago, because I live in Hawaii now, and all my kids my baby just graduated, and he's 17. And they're all gone, but 3 years ago, we came out here for our vacation while my father was in Finland, somewhere else. But they came out to Comptche, which was their first real visit all together as a family, and it's like, the whole ride up from Los Angeles coming up the coast, the only time the kids would get out of the car was to check to see if they had cell service. And then the ultimate, I'm gonna die, you get to Cloverdale, your cell phone, you're gone. That's it, so their life pretty much ended in Cloverdale. Comptche, and most of you have been there, and there's Comptche. And they moved about as fast as the grass was growing, and we're just kind of intrigued on, well, what did you do for entertainment? And it was kind of funny because that was back when, there was no cell phones, there was no computers. You entertained yourself, and we had a pretty good laugh last night after some of the older people went to bed.
What do you consider the old?
Are those with children? And those of us who didn't have a life were still around the fireplace, talking about the goat, the nanny. Well, there was. I'll show you the pictures later. But anyways, just little things that we would do. It would be an all-day adventure. We would just take the wagon and go down to the road, and it would be an all-day adventure, going all the way down to wherever, getting enough bottles for recycle, just enough to go back to the Comptche store and buy an ice cream. And it was like an all-day thing, or just go up on top of the hill, build a fort, and to come back, and for me to kind of explain that to the kids, that we entertained our own selves, and now that they're a little bit older, there was like, that was kind of cool, because we didn't have cell phones and Xboxes and all that. You had to entertain your own self, and it was good. And of course, then I had, my city cousins would come up, and then that would be my weekend entertainment. So, yeah, anybody would come and play. That was our entertainment.
We were like wild animals out there.
Yeah. And where's Michelle? Michelle's got. She was our entertainment for years. Thank God she still loves me.
When I was growing up, your dad was my entertainment. He would be out there milking cows, and he had nothing. And here were all the barn cats. There was like 4 or 5 barn cats, so into the bucket, each face, and then mine. And I thought, you know, my kids are never gonna know what a good taste of warm milk is. But it was, yeah, that was part of growing up. And Grandma used to make her own butter and her own bread, and she'd make these round loaves. Well, when they'd come out of the oven, it smelled so good. Everybody that went in there wanted to heat them. By the time Grandma got back into the kitchen, her round loaf looked like a hexagon. And she would look at it and say, well, why didn't you take the top two? And they're talking, I think we all grew up with the ghost in the house. There's a ghost in the house. Well, I remember being probably 8 or 9 years old, upstairs. There was no electricity in the house yet. So Bud's mom used to bring me up with a lantern. Little girl, tucked me into bed, said, there's the chamber pot under the bed. Well, she thought I was gonna get out of that bed. I don't know what was under the bed, but they said, and don't open the closet door because you'll let Gamata's ghost out. Now, Gamata was one of these old Finnish guys that had lived on the property years before. Well, I'd be petrified. Aunt May would leave with the lantern, and I was left up there. I'm not getting out of the bed. I don't care how many times you have to change the sheets. So I can see in the morning, and I can see what's under. Finally, at about age 30, I said, why didn't you want me to look in that closet? The only reason was because that's where they kept the Santa Claus suit. If I could see the Santa Claus suit, that would have ruined it. I said, so you scare the hell out of me because I couldn't see a Santa Claus suit? Thank you.
They talk about the city visitors. One of the things, and I don't remember what the paper was or when it ended, but every time we would visit, or any of us would visit from the Bay Area or something like that, we'd get a write-up in the newspapers. And that Comptche house. We're like, who visited? I was like, oh, this is a big deal. I'm going to read the papers. I think back on that.
That was the Comptche news.
Elsa Thompson never missed it.
Yeah.
She knew.
My sister wants us to talk about the chivalries that we used to have.
Oh, yeah.
And we came in on the tail end of it. So Buddy should really talk about the chivalries, because he organized or was involved in most of it.
Yeah, that's something that was done a long time ago when there was just local people around there. As soon as more outsiders started coming in there, we basically had to quit doing that. But the chivalry was when somebody got married and they'd start living wherever they were living, and within a week or two, during the middle of the night, sometimes maybe midnight or so, just a whole bunch of us would go up there and gather up around the house and with shotguns and rifles and
dynamite.
And then dynamite.
Welcome.
Yeah. You know, that was done for years, and there's a lot of eaves, a lot of the old houses that still got bullet marks. They'd get right up to the bedroom window and just pow, you know, right just fly up the front.
But once we got their attention, we always brought food and drink, and it was from midnight till 5 in the morning. That was chivalry. We had to stop because the newcomers, we scared them.
Oh,
They
they were
had no
shot back.
idea. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, you start shooting around newcomers out there. 911 or.
But one of my favorite chivalries that I remember as a child was when Buddy and Pat got married. And I don't know why you were at the house. And we're all there, Grandma's in her chair watching television. All of a sudden the chainsaws start, the shotguns go off.
And
Grandma gets up out of that chair and she's mad. Because it interrupted her television program. And she came around that back door. The first thing she picked up was an abalone shell, and for 70-something, she had a good sword. She flung that thing and hit poor Walter Newman right in the face. And he's the only one who was standing there not doing anything. I remember later somebody going out there and getting Walter a cloth, they gotta wipe the
When-
Go
when,
home, go home.
Go home, go home.
When Charlie McDonald and Sid Newman got married, and we gave them a chivalry, and on a clothesline, Sid had a slip hanging out there drying. Well, somebody blasted that thing with a shotgun. You know, it took that slip right off that clothesline and put it on a tree. Byron McDonald always wear one of those chopper's helmets and a metal helmet. And somebody grabbed it, threw it up in the air, and about 6 guys shot it. That was like a sieve.
You know, none of these people are ever gonna come to Comptche.
Well, back in the mid and early 40s, Saturday night was social night. And that was, what, there were 4 or 5 families that would get together for sauna. Somebody would light the sauna, and whoever's house it was, we would go over there and have sauna. And we always had to play bingo. And Mrs. Talia made sure that she brought a whole sack of white navy beans, because those were our markers.
And she cheated.
And yes, she did not like losing, I can guarantee you that. The whole community would go in, you know, the men and the women, or the couples, or the families, or however, but we would all go in and have these saunas. Well, I had a girlfriend up visiting with me, and we thought the guys were going in next. So we were gonna stoke up that sauna really hot. We went out in the back, we opened that thing up, and we threw wood in there. We said, ho, 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 are they gonna have fun? Get back to the house, here comes Grandma with her towel. For a half hour, we were panicked. We killed Grandma. We just died. It was too hot. She came out, she thought it was great. She said, nice warm. I said, okay. I never did that again.
Saunas were a big part of our life.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, every time we had families come up, and especially somebody new in the family, like Joanne, remember that time? Had her in there, Grandma didn't go in with us, because it was the kids and the younger women at that point. And we thought this would be so funny. Joanne laid on the floor and covered herself with baby powder, and somebody ran in the house and said, Grandma, Joanne passed out. And it was real funny until Grandma got to the sauna and realized Joanne didn't pass out. I think I was 3 hours up on that hill. I wasn't coming back. Grandma was bad.
One time when I was up there, Buddy's younger brother and my older brother were out playing around the sauna. Well, they broke the sauna window. And Grandma was really upset in the sauna window. And the boys were just looking and said, Grandma said, I don't think those 2 little boys could possibly break that window. And Billy said, well, if you hit it hard enough with an inner tube, you can.
Loose lip.
Didn't they catch fire? Didn't the
Oh,
sauna
yeah,
catch fire?
we've gone through 3. Third one caught on fire, but Buddy got it out in time, so it didn't burn down.
Weren't your mom in it when it caught on fire?
Mom was in the second one when it caught on fire. She just ran. Buddy stayed and put the third one out. But yeah, the third sound, put that one out. But yeah, we've gone through 3.
None of them had burnt all the way down. You know, they caught on fire.
Yeah, because the old one, the old one's still standing. But
Yeah.
Yeah, but every now and then you catch on fire. Well, these guys are so crazy, they'd go in there with picnic baskets. You know,
Big
because there's
pile of
only chance.
sandwiches.
Steak,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
steak.
exactly.
Much beer as we can carry.
Yeah.
Start at 9, get out at 4.
Yeah. And then they'd get us to see who could stand it the longest, the hottest, so they'd put out a bucket or a pan of water. When the water started to boil, they figured the sauna was good.
So it was called an ankle grabber, you know. We'd all look at each each other, and Buddy would go, "Don't blow," because if you blow on each other, you get burned. It's like scalding air coming at you.
Oh my God, it's hot.
Yeah, that's hot.
Yeah.
Every time that there was a new member of the family that came up for the sauna for the first time, like Joanne, but especially with the guys, they didn't care if they suffered. They were gonna make sure they got that sauna just as hot as they possibly could.
Initiation.
Initiation, it was an initiation, and I remember my husband telling me, he said, I was on my hands and knees trying to suck air. He said, and Buddy bent over and blew on me. He said, I thought he burned me. All go through the initiation.
And no matter how painful it was, you waited until that guy bolted.
Yes.
I remember I always hit the bottom floor. And then as soon as I went out the door, they'd be all out right behind me.
Oh, yeah.
I've had one experience with the sauna, and being the newest member of the family, and a little bit more modest, I didn't go through it with the gentleman, but Judy and I went together. Well, she made the mistake of asking Cousin Alan to stoke up the sauna. So we went into it, and my first experience, I didn't know what to expect. And having been a smoker for 25 years, 2 packs a day, she throws the water on the rocks. I'm sitting on the second tier, I'm down on the floor so I can toothpicks out of my teeth. It just put me flat on that floor.
We always used to mix it, well, not always, but sometimes used to mix a little beer with the water when we threw it on the rocks, and you get this nice sort of smell of baking bread. And
Yeah.
Not to mention a few other bodily parts of the that emptied the sauna.
Give birth in saunas?
In Finland, they would, yeah, because it was warm. Yeah, and probably sterile, because it could be.
You've never been in a sauna?
No.
There's a type of sauna in Finland where it's smoke sauna. You go inside, and in the inside the walls are all black, and they're not black because they're painted, they're black because they're all full of soot. And the way it looks, a sauna, yeah. There's a burner here that has a grate on it, and the fire and logs and everything's right underneath there. The rocks are on top, and it's not as though it's a chimney or anything like that, it's just right there. So when you throw the water in, nothing but soot and everything comes back at you. Surprisingly enough, you do get clean, but it's quite an experience.
What happens if you don't put the fire all the way out?
Well, it eventually does go all the way out, but, you know.
You have to make sure it's all the way out, otherwise whoever goes in there will die of carbon monoxide.
That's true. Keep the door open.
Well, we weren't ever so lucky, were we?
We always had a flu going on.
The summer entertainment kept coming back.
Did anybody watch the temperature? You know, nobody ever thinks of that, but I tried it with a thermometer on the wall, and as soon as you throw that water on the rocks, that goes to 212, and it stays there, and that's the temperature you're in.
Well, the cool thing,
212.
a lot of the Finnish saunas have it in Celsius instead of Fahrenheit, so it goes up to 60. Oh, it's only 60, that's no problem, you know. 120 degrees.
But actually, what really makes it feel hot is the humidity changes. When you throw a pitcher of water on there, if you have a good gauge that shows moisture, you just see that needle jump up.
Humidity change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so much, it doesn't get hotter. It's just that, the humidity, putting water on the rocks doesn't make it hotter.
I didn't know that.
It sure sends the temperature up.
I guess another tradition that has been passed down for generations, and not so much now, but when Grandma was alive. My mother tells a story, there were 5 girls in the family. And Mom tells a story about Grandma and Grandpa gone to Peterson's or gone someplace, and all the kids had a job to do. They were all in the kitchen washing pans or doing something, and Mom as a baby didn't have to do anything, so she went flying through just as somebody turned around with this big cast iron skillet, and Mom, of course she'd had whooping cough, so she couldn't see, wouldn't wear glasses, banged right into that pan, big old knot on her head. So then what are we gonna do? And somebody said, oh, if you put a knife against it, it'll bring the swelling down. So somebody's grabbing my mother, who's sure her head's gonna get cut off because somebody else is trying to get the knife. Just at that moment, Grandma and Grandpa walked in. And it was one of those boy cow. And kid going out of every door. Well, Jeanette says when they were up for the summer too, same thing. Every time any of us, we heard boy cow here, kid going out of every door and up the hill.
We had no idea who was in trouble, but we were not gonna stick around to find out which one it was. Just heard screen doors closing.
But you have a big family. People who don't have come from a big family don't understand a lot of those little things, because there's always somebody in a big family that's either in trouble or getting hurt. It makes no difference where you are, if there's more than 4 or 5, and of course there was 8 in mine, so somebody, when my folks went to town, could bet there would be somebody that when my parents got home and either been fell off a tree or something. I have to laugh though because I can relate to all.
I can say that the 3 Finnish phrases that come to mind are Vaha Dutta, Voi Gauja, and you want a Luna. Here you go.
You know what it is? Show you later. Sometimes Grandma didn't ask, she just walked by and got it.
That's the 3 that Kaya knows.
It was gonna be somebody's turn, it made no difference.
I remember one time when I was up there, my mom cooked a chicken dumpling soup, and we were up at May's house. And everyone sat around the table, I don't know, there was probably 10 people there or something, and I think it was even you, Darlene, you said, boy, it tastes just like Grandma's dumpling soup, and a big wind chime came off of the lamp, fell down in the butter dish right there.
Yeah, they're there with us, because that wind chime Brendan's talking about has been hooked on there for years.
Yeah, so it was heavy, it was a big
I mean, you had to
brass.
get pliers to get that thing off, and that thing just flipped up off of this chandelier and came right down the butter dish. Makes the hair on my neck stand up just.
I don't think Grandma liked the idea that my chicken dumpling soup was
As good as hers.
I'm not going there.
I'll get it on tape. I want the story.
Well, they talk about ghosts, and there has been a ghost that has been seen by me and by other people. But I was the downstairs living room, but was converted into a bedroom. You open the door, there's a staircase that goes upstairs. Well, I opened that door, and there was this figure of a man with kind of like a flat hat, like a parson's hat. Couldn't see a face, but just a figure. And what came to my mind was, Matt, don't do that, you scared the hell out of me. And I never referred to my grandfather as Matt because he had died long before I was born. I would say my grandfather came from Finland, my grandfather worked in the woods, but I never referred to him as Matt. So in my mind, I thought that had to be my grandfather. And then when the house was rented years later after your mother passed on and Grandma was gone, they rented the house, and there was 2 families living in there, and one woman's father was terminal cancer, and he was laying in the bedroom there where Grandma was. Grandma's
He was
bedroom.
in the blue room.
Huh?
He was in the blue room.
Yeah, he was in the blue.
In the blue? Okay. Well, Grandma's house anyway.
Yeah.
So Shirley was in there and she was feeding her father, and her father kept going like this. And she said, Dad, what are you doing? He said, I'm trying to see that man over there. And she said, what man? And he said, the man with the hat. And of course, when Shirley turned around and looked, there was nobody. So that's when we just kind of thought, maybe, who knows? There was 2 of us that saw a man with a hat. Whether or not you believe, We believe. We believe, yes. And my daughter to this day would not walk down that hallway to go to the bathroom. She'd rather go out in the bushes because she knows that there's something down there. And she's 44, you know.
Well, she also seen a stagecoach pull up, didn't she?
The what?
Oh, that was the carriage, I
Oh,
think, the carriage going off.
That was the carriage.
Carriage.
No, there's spirits with us all the time.
In that family discussion we had at our house where the clock started ticking, right? The pendulum, no pendulum in the clock, right?
Yep, never mind. Oh, haying, yes, that was fun. Wasn't it, Buddy?
Yeah.
Buddy was in charge of haying. He had to go out and cut down the hay and get it into a wagon. How'd you load that, by hand?
Yeah, pitchfork.
Pitchfork, okay, into this.
Loose hay.
Yeah. And then he would put me on top and we would ride over to the barn. And before he start pitching the hay into the barn, he'd pitch me. He'd grab me by the arm and the leg and, you know, I would go through the barn door and slide down whatever hay was inside there. And then he would fill up and then we would ride back and fill up the hay wagon again. But I'll tell you, the next morning, I looked like the Michelin Man. That hay was mixed with poison oak. I was swollen any place and every place. His mother put me in a bathtub with Epsom salt water, and I think I stayed there till I shriveled. But I didn't do that again.
One thing I remember about growing up there, as long as Grandma was alive, all her 5 girls stayed close. And every holiday, even if it was Memorial Day, they all came home, and it was always a great big, and that house was packed with people. You know, and we all sat at one table, well, the adults all did, sometimes the kids had to go off to the kid table. But I don't know how, that room is not that big now that we're all grown up. How they fit all those people, the table must have gone from one wall to the other.
It had to.
You know,
Yeah,
just
because
about that much to get around.
We had 5 sisters and only one without children. And everybody else was there. And that's another funny story. Milk. We always had these pitchers of milk on the table. Well, the first one to pick up the pitcher of milk had to pour milk in everybody's glass. Buddy could never hold out. We knew. We sat there. Buddy would be around, pour milk. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
I haven't heard anything about that sawmill. Now, that sawmill had to be a big part of the family life for many years. When was it made, and what was it? Where did the logs come from? And
Well, they came from locally around Comptche. The mill was started, I think it was like 1947, 1948, in that period. And by 1956, 57, that was about the end of it. The old growth lumber was used up around there, or the old growth trees were used up around there. There just wasn't that many trees available for that type of a sawmill.
were all the logs used up, or why did it?
Yeah, basically around there, the old growth timber was, and that type of a sawmill, it wasn't practical to cut second growth logs.
And where did you get the engine for that mill?
The original engine actually was a war surplus Whitten diesel. It was an auxiliary diesel off of a submarine. It really didn't have that much horsepower, but tremendous torque. The pistons, they were that big around. I think there was like 6 of them on there.
Wow.
Well, how big was the saw? Was it a circular saw?
Yeah, 60 inch, a double 60 inch.
One blade above the other?
One blade above the
So
other.
you could put big logs in there?
Yeah, you saw a pretty good sized log, yeah.
And you helped build it?
Yeah, well, all my summer vacations and on weekends, I worked at that mill. My dad actually was a mill builder there. Then he was a sawyer there for many years.
Wasn't the house like a boarding house at that time too?
No, actually, the boarding in 1915, I think it was, that's when my grandfather added on the two-story part to the house that they bought. And that was because that's when the railroad got there, and there was a lot of lumberjacks. And so they had a boarding house there. I really don't know how many boarders that they had there, but whatever it was, so many.
Was that just for the workers in the mill, or?
Oh, no, this is before the mill.
Oh, before?
Well, before the mill, this is when the railroad came up there. There was a lot of tie makers and loggers too, you know, cutting the logs, you know, for the Albion Lumber Company.
So the railroad, the Albion River Railroad came right by your property?
Oh, no, it didn't. Oh, within half a mile of there,
Right.
or less than half a mile.
That's over by Sis's, wasn't it?
But wasn't there also a laundry there?
Pardon?
On the other side of the house, wasn't there a laundry building?
Yeah, it was, I think, a washroom and like a
Storage room.
storage room and a potato. mill.
Oh, yeah, that was another room. That was another building. That was right on the side of there.
What was that, out
I thought every.
on Order Springs Road, is that a tie camp, or was that a shingle mill, or what
Oh,
was it?
where that old hotel was?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, they call that the Saints Mill. It was belonged to a church. And they actually had a little hotel there for the people that worked there. But right after World War II, there was a lot of sawmills in Comptche. There must have been a dozen of them. A lot of them were just small little sawmills. I think Don Philbrick's sawmill actually lasted about the longest around. It was around there for quite a few years until it burst down. I think
64,
64, yeah.
Is that Berners Mill?
Yeah,
It is?
yeah, it's the only thing that's left out there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know there was a mill there.
Yeah.
Well, like our place, you never know anymore there was a mill. really.
You know what, just this morning I was walking around and there's about a 4-inch cable, and I don't know how long it is, it's still on the ground out there. Right?
It's probably 3 miles.
We're always digging up a cave.
There's that 1 acre stump in your front yard there that is real strong evidence of a
Yeah.
garter or something
Yeah.
used to be there.
Yeah.
And I remember going as kids too, that there was a little more equipment there, and that was like the playground. You'd go there
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
look for
stacks of
lizards and snakes and
Tortured
by your cousin, big cousin Alan.
Get in the cement mixer. Next to the propane tank.
So, I liked old mills.
Well, when Helen and Judy and I were kids, we would play in that old mill. And it was, you know, how we never got stung by a scorpion or a black widow, we did. It was still sawdust, we'd go out there, we'd slide down the chute, get all full of slivers, and then finally, Mom finally mocked out at Buddy, and I said, you gotta burn that mill down before somebody gets hurt. One day, he just set it on fire.
Speaking of black widows, Grandma had the cellar, and of course they would can everything. They had huge gardens, and even the meats and the fish and everything got canned and got put down in the cellar. And I was there one time, and Buddy's mom said, would you like to have some pears with your breakfast? I loved their canned pears. They had the slices of lemon in there. I love those lemons. And she said, well, go on down to the cellar and get some. And I said, no way am I going down that cellar. It's full of black widows. I don't like pears that much. I wouldn't go down.
But every year the gold was to can at least 100 quarts of applesauce.
It was cool down there too, really.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
nice and,
Yeah.
It was all dirt.
yeah, yeah.
I don't think any fruit still doesn't taste as good as My mother used to can, my mother can too, but it doesn't, you go to the store and buy it, it still doesn't taste nice.
Nothing
I
like
buy
it.
it and I think, why did I open that? Because it doesn't have that aroma when you open the can like it did when you opened the jar.
And I don't know how they keep that fruit, not crispy, but just perfect.
Yeah.
It wasn't mushy like it is sometimes.
No, she'd pick it she'd send my dad, well, not my dad, she'd send him, but then it ended up being me going up, picking it just to right. But she'd can, like your mother and grandmother, everything, and to this day, when I open a can, it's like, it's not the same as
Yeah.
that and I think, you know, people really don't use, I say to people that, and they look at me like, you know what, it isn't the same.
And I remember Grandma May, or canning, and it was always the hottest day.
Oh, of
the year.
course.
And all the windows open, the flies, even with the screen doors, you know, because always some kid left the screen door open. And how they didn't have heat stroke in that kitchen. And in the early years, it was all on a wood stove.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My mother didn't have an electric stove till she moved into town, and I was already married, so she was
Yeah.
on a wood stove. And I don't know how she got everything, I don't know about your mother and grandmother, but the cakes and everything were all, they never burned, the bread never burned.
No, no.
I've got a fancy electric stove, guess what? Forget it, go to the grocery store and buy it.
And it doesn't taste the same.
No, it doesn't. You talked about baking bread. I grew up out in the country too, but when my mother would bake bread 2 or 3 times a week, and when I crossed the river coming from school, I could smell the bread. And I couldn't wait till I got home and slathered nice fresh butter on that bread. To this day, when I get warm bread and I try the same thing, forget it.
Yeah.
I think every family had a cook stove with a big oven in it, and just about everybody made their own
It
bread.
would be 110 outside on the river, and my mother started the fire to cook whatever it was because my dad had to eat because he was working. But then she'd cook, bake bread or whatever it was, or cook, and it's like, how can you, now when the kitchen gets hot, it's go downtown and buy something. I don't know how they did it. I agree with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I know they had to, but it's impossible to realize.
I know I would not do that. I don't can anything because it's in the summertime and it's too freaking hot. And then I complain because I don't like what I buy in the store.
I'm glad it's not just me. I can remember going to Comptche to dances when my brothers were.
Yeah, because your brother and my mother, I think.
When my brothers were in high school, of course, my mother didn't know that I was at Comptche.
Well, our
Many years, believe me, there were many years before she found out where I was supposed to be and what I wasn't.
Well, I know my mother was at the Piccolotti Ranch when she wasn't supposed to be.
Oh, yeah. I remember those days too. Well, we're not going there.
No.
You were talking about, you didn't remember what, you know, I didn't know that. I hope somebody wrote down all the I didn't knows. Because nobody would believe it.
Oh my, yeah. If there was a writer in the family, it would be, just to have people like to come into the Kelly house and getting these stories out. You know, so we can pass it on because there's so many I didn't know that. And some of them are not printable or repeatable.
I wasn't
But so many funny, a couple of
You
years
realize
ago.
we could have been related. That's even a scary part.
We're not going there either.
I only had 6 brothers to spread around amongst everybody.
Oh, I was gonna say that buddy story about the trap and trapping a deer. I didn't hear that story until 2 years ago. And I thought, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Somebody's not gonna remember that later on.
Oh, I will.
Thank goodness.
Just a little minor thing when you say that you had to create your own fun. Well, I remember sliding down the hill behind the wash house on a piece of cardboard.
Piece of cardboard. Well, we had a hill, we had people camped out at the river and, well, Alvin will talk about that. My dad used to keep cardboard in the garage in the barn because somebody would come out there and want to slide down the hill and didn't have their own cardboard. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But at the bottom of the hill was a fence with barbed
Oh, yeah.
wire. I mean, you laid flat when you went there. You were
Right there.
fence, yeah.
That's discipline.
And hot summer days too, it's over
Oh,
100
yeah.
degrees, you know.
Then the grass gets really hot when it's like that, and it sort of crackles and
Yeah.
snaps.
Yeah.
If they would make us go out and work in heat like that, now we'd complain, but running up that hill in the heat, that was different.
We talked about the hay, I used to do that when you went with Bud, the hay, there's nothing worse than the hay falling down, those little pieces
Oh,
falling down the back of your
yeah.
neck. And my dad raised corn to sell, and to me, I tell you what, the hay is nothing compared to those little, things that are on the corn,
Silk.
that silk gets down the back of your neck. I could not wait to go swimming in the river.
Speaking of that cardboard too, being the youngest one there, I was always first in line for quality control. Being the youngest, and they didn't want to pick on city girls, so they would get me.
From Mendocino, I wasn't a city girl.
Anyways. I know the answer. See, I was protecting you guys, hello. And they would, my cousin Greg and Wade and Mark and all those guys, they would come up, and I was the youngest and dumbest, and they would send me down the hill first to make sure there was no potholes, and, they would sweet talk me, and of course they would find the highest hill with the biggest piece of cardboard and talk me into getting on the cardboard, and off I went. And I'll tell you what, you can catch up some speed, and 9 out of 10 times, they would fail to tell me about the barbed wire on the bottom, and well, as long as I lived to the bottom, then they were all stoked and they were coming down behind me, But I can remember getting some air a few times over at Peterson's, and of course, and if I got hurt, then they had to be over there, nursing me, make sure I didn't cry getting it home, because they knew they would be in trouble. They didn't want to deal with my mom, so they had to nurse me, I was like, okay, well, we won't hit that hill.
Could I ask, when you were growing up, did you all have chores? Did you help with all the home baking and growing and
Churning,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
separating milk,
Yeah.
and
shredding the butter.
every day would be something then, I guess, that you were assigned to do, or?
Gosh, yes, and picking peas and shelling them, and there was always some little, not a lot, but there was always some little job that we were responsible for.
Carrying wood in the house.
That was your job.
And were you threatened if you didn't bring it in, you wouldn't get dinner?
Oh, yeah, that happened.
Only the guys.
Where in Finland did your grandparents come from?
Nivela.
And Galayoki.
Galayoki.
Oh, you know where Galioki
You're
is?
probably related.
Probably are.
There's a
Interesting
picture
that
of that.
you would say that town, because that's the only one I know.
Well, when Buddy went to Finland a couple of years ago, I didn't realize that Galayoki and Nivela were that close. It's almost like right across the river, right?
Well, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive, yeah.
Big river.
Big river.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that far.
Yeah.
You visited Galayoki too?
Yeah, that was,
You
talk
went to Galayoki.
about luck. This is one of the most lucky things we'd ever encountered. Buddy and Helen and I and Helen's mom went to Finland in 2005. And he wanted to find his relatives. And they said, oh yeah, we think he's in Galayoki. So, okay, well, we'll take a ride out there. And we didn't know what to expect. And we're driving along and come into the outskirts. Galayoki isn't a huge town, but it's kind of stretched out a little bit. And there on the right-hand side was this big sign that said Kivioja, which is Stenback in Finnish. And that's what we were looking for, was a Kivioja place. And it just happened to find it. We go there, and it's a museum on a house property. And as we walked into, the door was shut and locked, and we thought, oh well, it had been closed. And there was this lady working out in her garden over by the houses, and so we just wandered over, and these guys started talking with her, and it turned out it was like a great aunt or something like that, and she had been to Comptche before. And, they opened up the museum, gave us this huge tour of it. We saw the kiln, we saw the old family home, we went through that, and that's almost set up as a museum too now. And there's a photograph in back of a relief that's on the wall of the museum outside that shows the little family tree.
It's all ceramic.
That's awesome.
That's wonderful.
That was a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah.
I was there 40 years ago. I don't remember much, but we went to the church.
In Collier?
the graveyard.
Oh, that's what you always do.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about that last night, and that's one of the things that here, you have people that come and visit, and you take them out to restaurants, you go somewhere, like this. You go to Finland, the first thing they do is they take you to the graveyard, to the church. I don't know what the comparison is. It's true, it happens every time.
Well, the pastor was there, and I didn't speak Finnish, but my friend did. So he looked up stuff in the church records, and I
think in the world of small worlds, when I was looking at your display at the party yesterday, there's the Stenback family that has a branch in Fleetwood, Minnesota.
Yeah.
The only other place in the United States that has Tayas that do not belong to our family is in Fleetwood, Minnesota. Go figure, with people following each other. I think there was so much of the old country talking to the people in the States going, hey, there's good work for the boys, send them out, you know, and the shirt-tail cousins coming out back and forth.
Absolutely.
You know, that what are the chances that there's Stenbacks and Tayas in Fleetwood, Minnesota?
I looked through, I don't know, like dozens and dozens of censuses from Fleetwood, Minnesota, and they have your, where you're from, and they're all Finland. All Finland, every single one of them. There's almost no other nationality represented there. It's crazy.
Now think about traveling today and you want to go to Pedunk, Florida or wherever, how you get yourself from here to there. And I think about my grandmother, our grandmother, along with how many million other immigrants that came through Ellis Island, didn't speak a word of English. Her husband was here, he had sent for her. She had a little note to go to Comptche, California. Can you imagine back in 1906, somebody in Ellis Island knowing where to put them, and ending up in Oakland, coming off the train. And then having to take the ferry across, and then another train then up through Ukiah, and then the stagecoach. And you think, how in the heck did they do this and couldn't speak a word of English?
I wouldn't cross the street.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, they were lucky to come through immigration with their names.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather, he was Junttila, but he ended up Lyons.
Yeah.
Changed his whole
They changed
name. And his cousin, also Junttila, he ended up Laita, Laita ways.
Yeah.
But would you want to cross the Atlantic Ocean in the size of the ships, boats that they had? I mean, I have pictures of the boats my parents came on. I mean, they were, I think the biggest one was 47 feet. It's like, excuse me.
Oh, wow.
I'm crossing the river.
Get yours.
That rowboat that big.
I don't think you could do it 3 or 4 days either.
Yeah, exactly. So no, our grandmother wore out a pair of shoes dancing across.
right.
Yeah, she loved to dance, and her father was very religious, and the girls had to either wear black or gray, and dancing was absolutely, you went to hell for sure. So she wore out a pair of shoes coming to America.
I didn't know that.
There's another one.
Another one. I didn't know that.
My mother always wanted, she wanted to see the waves, so of course they came in steerage, but she would go up on deck to watch the waves, and they'd send her back down again. Back up she'd go. I said, why would you want to go up there as rough as it is? And her boat, I think hers was longer than that, but the one my dad came on was long. Oh, and she was fascinated by the fact that the ocean, was like, it's like, wait a minute. And of course, she'd get seasick going across Big River. Go figure. I still think somebody needs to write all those I did not knows down, because you're never going to remember every one of them.
Yeah, that's true, and we're all getting older, and
Oh, no, we're not.
I can't. And as we tell the stories too, they get changed just a little bit, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I wonder why.
Protect the innocent.
Speak for yourself. I would have gotten in trouble.
I could tell a few stories about especially Buddy.
Yeah.
All the Finn words that I know, and a lot of them aren't, I'm not gonna repeat them.
Oh my goodness.
But he taught them to me.
Innocent bud?
Innocent Bud, and also, the Comptche dance was Saturday night, and so we'd stop by the Stenbacks. And so they were in the sauna, and Bud said, well, come on in. I was all dressed, my clothes, and they drugged me in the sauna. Remember that? And somebody was walking down the Comptche Road there one time with some kind of a big fork. I don't know what that was for. It was a spear.
Oh, yeah, well that.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't going to say.
Yeah, well, back, in the 30s and early 40s, there used to be a lot of fish down there. The river was just full of fish. And everybody had spears and gaff hooks and stuff like that. And we never wasted anything. We'd go down there and it'd be a nice steel head, you spear it and bring it home and cook it. But anyway, there was this Finnish bachelor there. He was walking home with that spear. He couldn't hear too well anyway. He got tired of carrying the spear like that, so he put it crossways like this. He was walking down the middle of the road. Just when he realized that there was a cart wanting to get by. But I remember going down there and spearing like 47.
Wow.
Within a 2-day period or something like that, to get the smokehouse going. We had a big smokehouse. It was maybe 16 feet tall and 4x4 wide, and everybody did that. Everybody had not everybody, but most of the Finns anyway. They liked fish, so they, even though it was illegal, but they didn't really bother you then. But if there was a fresh run of fish coming up, it was no problem to go down there and catch that many fish.
What year was that?
And smoke them.
When, what year, approximately?
That would have been, in the late 30s and early 40s.
Yeah. In the 40s, my dad, we always smoked hams and bacon because we raised our own pig and hogs and killed them. But whenever my dad would put them in the smokehouse, you bet darn good and well, on game warden Holmes would come by and he'd see, you must have killed the pig, Pete, and Dad would say, yeah. Never say another word. Well, Bud's right. Nobody ever wasted anything.
You could.
No, we never wasted anything. The game warden used to laugh at my mother. She'd cook the horns if she thought she could get anything off. She never wasted it. And it was out of season, but they never said anything because they knew we wouldn't waste anything, and we had a big family. But
yeah, and people were hungry. A lot of it was during the Depression. There wasn't a lot of money, or even during the war too.
Yeah, it was during
Everything
the war.
was
All my
rationed.
brothers were in the service, so there was nobody, other than. But it was funny because somebody gave me some smoked salmon the other day, and I gave it away because it didn't taste like what I used to have when I was a kid.
See, now I'm not that bad.
Oh yeah, I'm terrible.
You knew times were tough when you walked into Grandma's house and it smelled like fish, and you opened up a pot and she was making fish head soup. Hear me, the snout, blank eyes.
No, I never had that, I guess.
Oh, lucky you.
Did I miss something?
It's actually good. Once you get past the eyeballs looking at you from the pot, it's good.
Yeah, the Portuguese here were really happy, the fishermen, because they would go out and they would fish and they'd be able to sell the fish to the Portuguese.
Yeah.
And they would sell the heads to the Finns. The Finns were out there buying all the heads they could get their hands on.
I tell my grandchildren about that, and of course they're I've always lived in the city, they think that lettuce comes all wrapped up in a cellophane bag at Safeway. And I said, you know what, I got news for you, that's not the way it started.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of fish head soup,
Bud has a,
this young lady over here lived with us for 9 months, and I fixed fish head soup for dinner one night. Didn't tell her what it was. She came from school hungry, ate it, and we told her.
Yeah, yeah.
She obviously didn't see the eyes.
I picked them out. But she ate it. Yeah.
Bud, tell us about when you went surveying and you cut into a redwood tree and what you found way deep inside that redwood tree. I wish you'd brought that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a bearing tree that, back before the turn of the century, when the government was surveying all this country for, for the homesteaders and timber and stone axe and stuff like that, they'd make these bearing trees, and what they would do is cut a flat surface on a tree, and then they'd go out there and write on there, section so and so and whatever on their township range and all that.
But it was carefully chiseled in, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, you had a regular, what they call a scribing tool, and that's what you would.
That was preserved, the tree
Yeah.
just grew around it, and you found that sign buried right in the tree.
Yeah, and then over a period of time, then the wood would actually grow around it. And you could pop that thing out of there, and it'd be, you have to read it with a mirror in order to read it.
Oh, yeah.
It was inverted.
Interesting. That's interesting.
And you still have that at home?
We, most of the bearing trees were, they put them on tan oaks and stuff like that, which kind of rotted over a short period of time, or they make tan oak out of it. But the ones that they put in redwood trees, if they didn't fall a tree, you will go out there and find those old scribes in there. I've found lots of them over a period of many years.
Do you have one of those at home?
But I do have that one.
Do you have one at home?
Yeah.
No.
I'll show you.
Never got your bearings.
I know you've seen it.
Okay,
Yeah,
probably.
it's been around.
Selective
But in order to read it, you have to get in front of the mirror.
It's to read it further. Interesting.
How many people here do you suppose rode the Comptche bus?
Well, let's see.
Well, you can raise your hand too.
Oh, I had put out the sign, catch the bus. Your mother, how many times did your mother say, if you're not careful, this is.
He can
Yeah,
raise
exactly.
your
You
hand.
should be so lucky that you didn't have to be like the Piccolotis. Oh, yeah, because you had to cross the river and 2 ranges and everything else like that just to get to the road.
Yeah, uphill both
How many
ways.
miles did you
Yeah.
go out? 4 miles?
2 miles.
4 miles?
2 miles.
2 miles.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what, Joe Frazier drove the bus when I was, and we had an agreement. If I was not at the bus stop at 8 o'clock, that meant I was not going to school that day.
Uh-huh.
There were very few times that I missed the bus.
yeah.
Because that meant I had to go home and explain to my mother why I missed the bus.
Yeah.
And there was nobody to drive me to school. So, but when I could ride with my father, that was great, because every time I rode to town with him, we were always late. Because he had to get all the chores done before he would take the vegetables or the eggs into town. So school started at 9 o'clock. Well, shoot, half the time I'd get to school be 10 or 10:30. Teacher would say, well, you must have rode with your dad today.
I remember one time I was dawdling, I think Judy, we were both on the bus, and dawdling, whatever, missed the bus, and we only had to walk, 500 feet down to the road, something like that, and that's when we got the Piccolotti story again. You know, Alice and all those kids had to walk all that, and you can't go that far to miss that, to get to that bus.
Sorry.
That's why you've been a legend in our house.
You didn't have to get on that little swing thing and go across the river either.
That was fun.
exactly.
I did,
Oh,
that was
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
When my brothers used to do that with me, but I didn't get to do it by myself because my mother didn't trust me. There really no reason why my mother didn't trust me to do some of the things, but after I grew up, I realized that she was smarter than I thought she was.
Knew more than you let on.
She knew more than she knew a lot of things about that I did that I didn't realize until I got a little bit older, that, wait a minute, I thought I was getting away with something, but guess what?
Yeah, yeah.
It did not happen.
I guess I was more lucky, I could always hitchhike to get a ride.
I could sit out there all day long and wait for somebody to come along at the Kaiser school. There'd be nobody along with the car to take me to school. I might as well turn around and go home.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly right. 'Cause
But I'd also walk back again on Saturdays to get the mail. And then I would go down to Homer's to sell seeds because he always bought seeds from me.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah.
Homer's Market.
You figured out at one time how many miles you had walked.
I did, yeah.
Oh.
7,000 something
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
in 12 years.
Yeah.
I gotta walk them back and forth across the United States twice and have.
That's right.
And that was all rough walking too.
It was not about walking in the park, but you know what? I could leave the house at, the latest I could leave the house and catch the bus at 7:45 would be about 10 minutes after 7. And I figured that I could make it in 30 minutes. But I got news for you. I can't walk. Never mind, I'm not even gonna try. But my brother and I used to see which one of us could get to school the fastest when he was still in grammar school. And long legs were real good for us getting to my school.
Well, you can only imagine the reminiscing that went on yesterday.
Oh, it must have been fun.
And all the stories, and, you know, I think we were celebrating 100 years that the grandparents had bought the property. And I think we were probably all remembering how it used to look and how much the trees have grown now, and you know, it's just changed in a lot of ways, and you can't help but wonder that what Matti and Hilda would think today if they were back. And this video will be going to Finland for some of our relatives to see. So we'll say terve terve, that's the Finnish greeting. Sitten nähdään, we'll see you. And thank you so much for being here today, and you can continue with stories if you want, but we're going to be serving Finnish pulla that my grandmother made every week, and Finnish cookies and coffee and tea, so be sure to come in the kitchen. And thank you for being here.
That's my dad, Brendan. Yeah, Jeanette's my grandma. Yeah. Been living in Santa Rosa. Yeah, and it's been like 8 years since we've been up here. So it's like been a long time. Since she moved back to Las Vegas. Yeah. So it's good, it's nice to be up here. See a lot of people we don't know.
8 years is too long. This is going to your relatives. I'll try to get everybody to talk.
Right, guys, in here. Hey, how you doing? Are your Finn cousins?
They're sending this somewhere?
Buddy. She had a question about, have there been any fires in Comptche?
Fires?
Yeah.
1933.
1932, the big Comptche fire.
Yeah, no, this you want to get on tape if you're not filming. Go ahead. Here, back up. You're going to need
Really?
The one big fire that is it on? Yeah, the one big fire that that Comptche is known for is what they call the Comptche fire, and that went from Big River all the way to Navarro, like in a day. Well, it was just they closed the mill down in Mendocino, and just everybody just. Nobody was really a qualified firefighter, but you just went in, and that type of a fire is awful hard to control. The only thing you do is to try and save a house, and then when the fire goes by there, you try and save another house. So, yeah, but what I understand, there was one fire truck in the county, that was in Ukiah, that they sent out there, you know. And what's one fire truck gonna do?
So was it especially dry summer?
It was a very hot, dry. The humidity was down in the single digits.
And fires was that storm.
Yeah, and then the fire actually creates its own wind. The wind was just really, really strong. And they say that it would blow burning limbs from one ridge top to another, and that's why it spread so fast. Yeah.
Hey, I was trying
I sure hope you edited it carefully.
No editing needed.
It was either March quicker or down the